Level 1.
You're 16 years old, and the car is a 2003 Honda Accord with oxidized gray paint and a right bumper that hangs slightly crooked. You bought it with money you saved from a summer job, and the previous owner seemed genuinely surprised anyone wanted it. It leaks coolant, bright green, pooling under the engine. Your father crouches down to look at it. He stands up without saying anything and walks inside. That silence is worse than anything he could have said. You don't have a garage. You have a driveway, a flashlight, and a phone with 12% battery. That night, you open the hood and see things that are beyond your understanding. You close it. You go inside. You pull up YouTube. A man with permanently grease-stained fingernails explains water pump gaskets. You watch the video twice. Then you go back outside. The first bolt won't turn. You push harder. It snaps. You stand there for a moment, longer than you should. Then you go inside and come back with an extractor kit your father had in a drawer for ages. It takes longer than the video said, twice as long. At some point, you stop checking the time. The gasket slips from your fingers and disappears somewhere inside the engine bay. You freeze. Then you slowly reach in. Your knuckles come back bleeding. You pour coolant into the cap. You close the hood. The puddle is gone. The next morning, you start the car. It runs, but when you listen closer, it doesn't sound like it did yesterday.
Level 2.
You're 18 now. The Accord has been through things. Different wheels you found at a junkyard, a cold air intake that doesn't make meaningfully more power but sounds like it does. And at 18, that distinction doesn't matter yet. You've turned the radio off permanently, not because it's broken, because you're listening for something. Your passengers don't understand. You've stopped explaining. 6 months ago, you discovered the Sunday night meet behind the shopping center. You drove past it twice before turning in. The first time, the parking lot looked too open. The second time, you slowed down but didn't stop. The third time, you told yourself you were just looking. 28 cars. You park at the edge. You don't know anybody. A man walks past and stops. He looks at your engine bay. "That thermostat housing," he says, pointing. "It's cracking." He walks away. You sit for 10 minutes. You don't know anybody there yet. Then another man comes over. His name is Marcus. He spends 2 hours showing you other people's builds. Nobody is performing. Nobody is trying to impress anyone. They're just showing each other what they've done. The knowledge transfers through conversation in a way that no other medium could. Someone shows you that your wheel fitment is wrong in a way you couldn't see yourself. Someone else explains why your brake bias needs attention before you touch anything else. The feedback isn't polite. Politeness would be condescending. When someone takes time to tell you what's wrong, it means they think you can fix it. When you drive home at night, your hands feel different on the wheel.
Level 3.
You're 20 now. At the meet, Marcus leans against your fender and asks a question that doesn't sound like a question. "How fast have you actually driven this thing?" "Pretty fast," you say. He nods, doesn't say anything else, just nods. 2 weeks later, he tells you about a track day, a proper circuit, 35 minutes away, time slots, instruction available. You go expecting to go fast. You discover that you don't know how to drive your own car. The first session is humiliating in a way that's hard to describe. An experienced driver rides along. He doesn't say much. He lets you drive. At the end of 3 laps, he tells you 3 specific things you're doing wrong. Your braking point is too early and too soft. You're carrying too much speed into corners and losing it at exit. Your hands are too tense and transmitting that tension to the steering. You spend the rest of the day working on one thing at a time. The difference between driving a modified car on the road and driving any car on a track is the difference between eating pasta and making it. One is passive, one requires everything. Your lap time is 1 minute 47 seconds. A stock Civic does 1:29. You pull into the pit. Your hands are shaking. Marcus walks over. "Scary?" "Yeah." "Good." You modify the car differently after that day.
performance-oriented now. Brembo brake pads, tires with actual grip. You take weight out. Rear seats, gone. Spare tire, gone. Things you'd never remove from a road car come out without hesitation because the track doesn't need them. The car gets better. You get better. The two processes happen together, and it's impossible to separate them.
Level 4.
You're 23. The Accord is gone. You sold it to a kid who reminded you of yourself 6 years ago. Same nervous hands, same too quiet confidence, and put the money toward a Nissan Skyline R33. Gunmetal gray, rear-wheel drive, and RB26 under the hood, which means twin turbos from the factory and a block that can hold more power than most people will ever know what to do with. You build it properly this time. Not because you couldn't before, because now you know what properly means. Every modification has a reason. The stock ceramic turbos are fragile above 14 psi, so you swap them for a single Garrett GT35R with a top-mount manifold. The factory intercooler heat soaks after 2 pulls, so you replace it with a front-mount unit that fills the entire grill opening. The fuel system gets a 255-liter-per-hour pump and 700cc injectors because more boost means more air, and more air means more fuel, and running lean at 7,000 RPM is how you put a rod through the block. The head gasket is metal now, ARP studs throughout. Every change connects to the next one, the system thinking that you couldn't do at 16 because you didn't know the system. You tune the engine management yourself. You wire in a standalone ECU, no piggyback, full control, and spend 3 weekends learning the software. The first time you make a change, 2 degrees of timing pulled above 5,000 RPM to clean up a knock reading you caught on the logs, and see the result? Something shifts in your understanding. The engine is a system of inputs and outputs. The ECU is the translator. Tuning is the process of making the translation more accurate. You've been a passenger in this process until now. Suddenly, you're in the room where it happens. The R33 makes 480 horsepower at the wheels on a conservative tune, not a number you're estimating or claiming, a number with a dyno chart behind it, printed and pinned to the wall above your workbench. You stopped watching YouTube at 2 a.m., not because you stopped caring, because now you're the person making the videos that other people watch at 2 a.m.
Level 5.
You're 26. You have a reputation in the regional scene. Not famous, just known. Your posts get shared. People recognize your car at events before they recognize you. You've started helping other people with their builds, not professionally, as a favor, or because a problem is interesting, or because someone trusted you with their car and that trust should be honored. A woman drops off a Civic Si that 4 different mechanics couldn't diagnose. Rough idle, loss of power under pulls, no check engine light. You spend a Saturday with a laptop and a wideband sensor working through it methodically. You find a vacuum leak so small it took 4 mechanics to miss. The car runs cleanly for the first time in 2 years. You realize that diagnosing is a separate skill from building. Building is understanding how things should go together. Diagnosing is understanding why they didn't. Both require knowledge. Diagnosis requires something beyond knowledge, a kind of pattern recognition that comes from having seen enough failures to understand what failure looks like. You've seen enough now. The pattern recognition is there. Someone at a meet asks about your tuning philosophy. You answer before they finish the question. Then you stop yourself. You realize you're not thinking about the answer anymore. You just know it. This is what competence feels like. It's quieter than you expected.
Level 6.
You're 29. You're doing this for money now. Not only for money, but consistently for money. A small shop, a lift, a dyno you share time on at a facility across town, a laptop with 4 different tuning platforms, and a waiting list. The professional environment reveals something the garage never could. When it's your money in your car, you accept a certain level of risk. When it's someone else's car and someone else's money, the standards are different. The difference between a tune that works and a tune that's right is invisible to most people. It becomes the only thing you're focused on. Customers bring you things they've bought cheap and tuned badly and want fixed. Some of them are fixable. Some of them are beyond saving, and you have conversations that require saying things people don't want to hear. You've seen enough engines destroyed by bad tunes to understand there are lines worth holding. The business side is more frustrating than the mechanical side ever was. Invoices, insurance, equipment that needs replacing exactly when you can least afford it. You solve these problems the same way you solved mechanical problems, systematically, with the assumption that everything has a solution if you understand the problem correctly. You stop building your own car, not all at once, just gradually, till the point when you realize you haven't touched it in months. The irony doesn't escape you.
Level 7.
You're 34. The car sitting in your shop is going to break a record. Not almost, it's going to do it. You know this because you've been through the math 1,000 times, because the components are chosen with no compromise, because the driver is the best you've ever worked with, and you've worked with people who compete at a level most people don't know exists. You built the engine yourself over 4 months, not because you needed to, because no one else was going to know it the way you know it. Record day comes. The car runs. The first attempt reveals something that data didn't show, a fuel delivery inconsistency at the top of third gear. You fix it that evening. The second day, the car runs clean. The record falls by a margin that surprises even you. You don't post about it immediately. You drive home. You sit on the sofa sipping a cup of coffee and think about the driveway, the flashlight, the phone with 12% battery, the bolt that snapped, your father walking inside without saying anything. The distance between that moment and this one is almost impossible to calculate, and yet the logic of it is perfectly clear. Every step followed the one before it. Every mistake became part of the knowledge. Every car taught you something the car before it couldn't.
Level 8.
You're 42. The shop is trained people who now have their own practices. Cars you've built sit in magazine covers, museums, and the memories of people who watched you work. But that's not what matters. What matters is the 17-year-old who works for you now, dropped out of school, doesn't know what he is yet. He's been watching you for weeks. One afternoon, he asks if he can try a fuel injection diagnostic. You show him once. He does it wrong, but he's thinking about it right. It takes him an hour. A professional would do 15 minutes, but he understands it. You watch him torque a bolt to spec. He asks why it matters. One bolt off and the whole system fails. He doesn't look away from the bolt. Something changes in his face. You recognize it. You saw the same thing 26 years ago when you stood in a driveway alone with a broken bolt and bleeding knuckles. You keep working. He keeps watching. Somewhere right now, a 16-year-old is in a driveway with a used car they paid too much for and tools they're not sure how to use. They're watching a video on a phone with dying battery. They're going to strip a bolt. They're going to feel stupid. They're going to get it right eventually and feel something that will point them forward for the next 20 years. They'll figure it out. Most do.